Exercise 1, page 47. One,
C. Recycle old materials.
2,
A. Pick up litter in your neighbourhood.
3,
B. Help the elderly.
4,
E. Donate to charities.
5,
D. Look after stray animals.
3A, life swap. Exercise 1A, page 48. A,
The rich,
B,
the poor,
C,
the young,
D,
the blind,
E,
the homeless,
F,
the elderly,
G,
the unemployed,
H.
the disabled.
Exercise 1B, page 48. Pete,
I lost my job 6 months ago because the company I worked for went bankrupt and had to close down. I've been looking everywhere for another place to work, in the newspapers, online. I even go around personally to businesses and leave my CV with them. So far, though, nothing. I hope something comes along soon.
Sandy,
Since my car accident, when I injured both legs, I've had to learn to get around in a wheelchair. I've been having physical therapy for 3 months now, and I'm told there's a good chance I will walk again. Meanwhile, I try to stay cheerful. Most people are very kind, helping me get onto buses and up ramps and that sort of thing.
Anne,
Accepting the fact that I've lost my sight was difficult. I've always hated the idea of relying on others to help me get around. You feel such a burden. Now I've just bought the most wonderful dog. He's a marvellous companion and never leaves my side. When we go out together, he guides me safely across the road without bumping into anyone.
Bart,
Celia and I got engaged last month, and I gave her a huge gold and diamond ring. Now we're looking for a house to buy. Celia really wants something with a swimming pool and stables for the horses. So long as we find something by next June, we're getting married then. After that, I've booked a luxury cruise on the French Riviera for our honeymoon.
Exercise 3, page 48.
Before you abuse, criticize and accuse, walk a mile in my shoes. American singer-songwriter Joe South, 1969. A day in the shoes of. The city can be an unfriendly place at the best of times. Imagine then how it might feel for the elderly or the homeless, people who are often marginalized by the rest of society. So, to find out what it's really like to be in someone else's shoes, 2 reporters went undercover. One as an 80-year-old and another as a homeless person. The results were eye-opening. An Elderly Lady by Tracy Bond.
Turning 25-year-old me into an 80-year-old was no easy task. With the help of a makeup artist, I had to be covered with layers of prosthetic makeup. After putting on a shabby coat and holding tightly onto a walking stick, my transformation was complete and very convincing. Then, it was time to set out to see how the world would react. Making sure that my voice sounded old and weak, I immediately tried to make small talk on the bus with the young woman sitting next to me. She stared straight ahead, She might not have heard, I thought. I tried again. But it was quite clear that the woman didn't want to talk to a chatty senior citizen. Then it was time for some shopping. At my favourite makeup counter, where the assistant usually laughs and jokes with me, she looked as if she couldn't wait to get rid of me. Later, in a music shop, my request for some CDs was met with laughter from sales assistants, who couldn't believe an 80-year-old was interested in the latest chart hits. I felt incredibly embarrassed and lonely, as if nothing about me was important, except that I was old. All day, only one person seemed to want to chat to me, a homeless man. He too was invisible and unwanted by society. As I finally took my makeup off, I couldn't help wondering how I would have treated 80-year-old me. Over the next 50 years, the number of elderly people in society will triple. Remember that the next time you're out and about and come across an elderly person. One day, it could be you.
A Homeless Man by Sam Brown.
Carrying a sleeping bag and wearing scruffy clothes, I headed for the spacious shop doorways where the homeless spend their nights. When I arrived there, I was shocked to see men and women already curled up in most of the doorways. I got into my sleeping bag in the large, well-lit doorway of a boutique, but I couldn't sleep. It wasn't just the biting cold, but I was constantly aware of people walking close to my head, and the hard stone floor dug into my shoulder and hip. I finally dozed off, only to be woken up at about 5 a.m. by the cleaners who arrived to wash the steps. As I walked, people avoided looking at me and crossed the road. I walked into a cafe to use the toilet, and I was angrily told I had to leave. At the public toilets, I couldn't believe the reflection I saw in the mirror. My eyes were red and puffy, my skin pale, and my hair was frizzy. I looked terrible. Later, at a soup kitchen, I got a free hot meal, and I spoke to people who were on the streets because of terrible debts or family breakups. 19-year-old Rob told me that he couldn't get off the streets because he had no official identity. I suddenly remembered how many times I had walked past young homeless people and thought, you should just get a job, forgetting that you can't be employed without an address and ID. My day as a homeless person has taught me how much the homeless need our help, not our judgment. These days, I donate money to a homeless charity and volunteer at a soup kitchen. Maybe you could do the same.
Three B. Giving your time. Exercise 1A, page 50.
World problems. Homelessness. Illiteracy. War. Crime. Aging population. Population growth. Hunger. Racism. Poverty.
Exercise 2, page 50.
A street education. What would you do if you had 3 months to do whatever you wanted? Mitch McGregor spent his 3 months in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where he taught English to homeless street children. He told us all about his life-changing experience.
Most of my friends were travelling the world during their summer holiday, but I wanted to do something worthwhile. I wanted to volunteer. But where and how? At the age of 20, I would say I'd had a privileged childhood. My parents had put me through school, fed and clothed me, and given me plenty of love and affection. So after reading about the favelas, the slums of Brazil, where thousands of street children live in appalling poverty and often don't even reach the age of 18, I decided that I'd spend part of my summer helping these children in whatever way I could. I set off for Rio de Janeiro, where I would join a volunteer group that taught basic skills such as hygiene, literacy, English, and business skills in a makeshift school in the heart of the favelas. The residents of these slums, which stretch up the hillsides around and away from the wealthier city centre, make up about 1/5 of the population of Rio de Janeiro. The poverty leads to many broken homes, and if they experience violence at home, or their families can't look after them anymore, children end up on the streets. Those who can't survive by begging, selling newspapers, or shining shoes often turn to crime to survive. I was going to work in a school which gave those kids a basic education. My first day at school was really nerve-wracking. I'd never taught before, I only knew a few words of Portuguese, and I just didn't know what to expect. The 10 children who turned up to my first English lesson were really friendly and eager to learn. They only got 1 meal a day of just rice and beans, and at night they slept under bridges and in doorways. But these children saw learning English as a possible way out of their lives of danger and destitution. As days went by, I got used to the place. The roof of the little shack leaked when it rained, and there wasn't a schedule or textbooks. Still, the kids trusted me, and some of them made a lot of progress. During break times, we headed out into the tiny yard to kick a ball around, and I found out why Brazilians have a reputation as the best football players. Then we cooked and ate together, but at the end of the day, when they left to go back, where? I often wondered whether I would ever see them again. The host family that I stayed with was marvellous. They adopted me as an unofficial carioca, which is the name for someone who was born and lives in Rio de Janeiro. It was the school, though, that made my time in Brazil truly special. Even though I was the teacher, the street children taught me a lot more. I learned that no matter how bad conditions are, there is always hope for the future. My time in Brazil was eye-opening. If I hadn't gone, I would have missed out on the experience of a lifetime. If I could do it all again, I'd jump on a plane right now.
(3C) Culture Corner. Exercise 1, page 52.
Glastonbury Festival. If you follow the signs for Worthy Dairy Farm in Pilton, Somerset, you'll find the place where a music festival was first held in 1970, over 40 years ago. Now, Glastonbury Festival is one of the largest, most popular greenfield music and performing arts festivals in the world, raising thousands of pounds for charity and attracting 150,000 or more people to see over 700 live performances every year. The organisers of Glastonbury have always considered it to be a special, mystical place. It takes place on a weekend in June, around the time of the summer solstice, in the Vale of Avalon, a part of southwest England famous for its legends, mythology, and spiritual traditions. The organisers compare a visit to Glastonbury to a visit to a new country. First things first, you pitch your tent in a huge, usually very muddy field, or you rent a teepee. Then it's time to explore the huge 900-acre site, with nearly 20 different unique areas, each with their special attractions and loyal fans. Wander over to the green fields and you can get a massage and enjoy vegetarian food for free. Then there's Arcadia and its amazing fire shows. The Campo Pequeño, a huge amphitheatre with Mexican wrestling, and Glasto's very own La Tomatina, which is a huge tomato fight. Everywhere there are food stands, performers, dance areas, and music performances. If in doubt, the organisers say, just wander around because Glastonbury is full of surprises. The most familiar view at Glasto is the huge steel pyramid stage where top musicians including U2, Shakira, Kylie Minogue, and the Arctic Monkeys have played. The festival organisers modelled it after the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, choosing a pyramid shape to attract the energy of the sun and stars. Glastonbury isn't just famous for music and mud. It's also about promoting green issues, humanitarianism, and freedom of expression, principles which the festival organisers have never left behind. Glastonbury supports many charities, including WaterAid, Oxfam, and Greenpeace. Festival goers are also encouraged to recycle and leave the site as tidy as possible, respecting the land and helping it to recover. Until the next Glastonbury weekend.
"3D. Everyday English." Exercise 1, page 53.
How can I help you? I'd like to make a donation. Would you like to make a single donation or a regular monthly donation? That's wonderful. Could I get your full name and address, please? Could you give me your credit or debit card number, please? And what's the expiry date? Thank you so much for your donation. You're very welcome.
Exercise 2, page 53.
Hello, WaterAid. How can I help you?
Hi, I've been reading one of your leaflets and I'd like to make a donation to WaterAid, please.
Okay, that's great. Would you like to make a single donation or a regular monthly donation?
I'd like to make a regular donation of £10 per month, please.
That's wonderful. Could I get your full name and address, please?
Sure. It's John Stafford. That's Stafford. My address is 20 Dell Court, Charing Cross, London.
And a contact number?
020 7730 1024.
Could you give me your credit or debit card number, please?
Certainly. It's 7654 3234 9456 3225.
And what's the expiry date?
It's June next year.
Okay, that's all, Mr. Stafford. Thank you so much for your donation.
You're very welcome. Goodbye.
Goodbye and thank you again.
Exercise 4, page 53.
How can I help you? May I speak to Mr. Brown, please? Would you like to leave a message? I'd like to make a donation, please. Could you give me your name and address? Could you ask Mrs. Smith to call me back, please?
3E. At all costs. Exercise 1, page 54. One.
Raise funds by organising a music festival or an art contest.
2.
Join a conservation group. Join an environmental group.
3.
Start a blog campaign.
4.
Organise a slideshow or a lecture.
5.
Create informative window displays and posters.
6.
Make a video and upload it to YouTube.
7.
Walk through the Amazon rainforest.
Exercise 2, page 54.
The worst place to take a walk. On August the 9th, 2010, Englishman Ed Stafford became the first man in history to walk the entire length of the Amazon River. To be exact, he walked 4,000 miles in 28 months. But this brave explorer faced some terrifying hazards along the way. The source of the Amazon River is high in the Andes Mountains. At first, it's a gentle trickle, but then it gathers speed and widens, eventually rushing into the Atlantic Ocean at 58 million gallons a second. The Amazon runs through the world's largest jungle, which is home to 1/10 of the world's animal and plant species. It is also one of the planet's most dangerous and hostile habitats. European explorers sailed it in the 16th century, but no one was brave enough to walk it. The dangers there are enough to put anybody off. Floods, giant anacondas, jaguars, electric eels, drug smugglers, malaria, hostile tribes, and sharp-toothed caiman crocodiles. So why did Ed want to walk there? Firstly, Ed wanted to prove that this walk was possible, simply because everyone said it couldn't be done. But his true inspiration was something even more important: the rainforest itself. Ed, who was a former army captain, used to lead jungle expeditions for a living, and saw how deforestation was destroying huge sections of rainforest. He desperately wanted to raise public awareness about the issue and knew that if he went on an adventure like this, it would grab people's attention. So, on April the 2nd, 2008, Ed set off from the jungle of Peru. From the start, he kept a video blog so viewers could follow his progress online. Ed recorded his many hair-raising moments, the bites and stings he suffered, encounters with angry locals, and his unforgettable meeting with a deadly pit viper. The snake, ready to strike, backed off at the last moment. Lucky for Ed. Ed faced endless challenges. After his GPS failed, he had to use a compass and a 60-year-old map to find his way. When he approached a village for supplies, he realized the village was no longer there, so for a while he had to survive on piranha and turtles. He constantly struggled to stay healthy. One time, a swarm of wasps attacked him and stung him over 30 times. Another time, he had to inject himself with antibiotics for 3 weeks to stop a face-eating bug he caught. Relationships weren't always easy either. Only 3 months into his journey, Ed and his walking partner argued over an iPod, and his partner returned to the UK. But then, a Peruvian forest worker, Gadiel Cho Sanchez, offered to join Ed for a few days. He ended up staying with him for 2 years. One day, 5 canoes filled with an Amerindian tribe approached the pair. Some had their bows drawn, others even had shotguns. They were furious to find foreigners in their territory. Eventually, the chief let them go, but only if he could go with them. He became their guide for the next 47 days. The list of difficulties goes on and on. Crossing under or over fallen trees, wading through mud, and walking through razor-sharp grass made progress painfully slow, but Ed never considered giving up. He was determined to finish what he started. Finally, after 860 days and 50,000 mosquito bites, Ed reached his final destination, the Atlantic coast of Brazil. But the last part of his journey was also the hardest. In the last week, he collapsed with exhaustion, got an agonizing rash all over his body, and then a fierce 6-mile-wide river nearly swept him out to sea. But somehow, Ed finally made it. He is so happy that his achievement succeeded in raising lots of money and drawing attention to the many threats to the Amazon rainforest, the spectacular lungs of the planet, and a natural wonder we must conserve at all costs.
(3F) Moving out. Exercise 1, page 56.
Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune.
Exercise 8, page 57.
Space colonization, future or fantasy? Since Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon on the 20th of July 1969 and declared "one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," people have been dreaming about creating futuristic communities in space. Science fiction films such as 2001: A Space Odyssey and Star Wars have filled our minds with images of spacecraft traveling at the speed of light to colonies on other planets in another solar system. Until now, these ideas have just been fantasy. But now leading scientists, such as Stephen Hawking, say that colonizing space is the only answer for the future survival of mankind, otherwise we will die out. He believes that sooner or later we will be wiped out by a catastrophe such as a meteor or nuclear war. But is space colonization really possible? One solution would be for us to move to space stations orbiting near Earth. After all, astronauts have already been living on NASA's International Space Station, ISS, continuously since 2000. The ISS gets its power from solar panels. It generates its own oxygen and even recycles water. But there's still a huge problem. All of its food and other supplies have to be sent from Earth. Humans would need to be self-sufficient to survive in space long term. So maybe colonizing the moon would be a better solution. The moon has rich resources which could be used to construct a colony. Also, in 2009, scientists found water on the moon, which could be used to extract oxygen for breathing. Exploring space, however, is not without risk. There is no atmosphere on the moon, and it is boiling hot during 13 days of sunlight, and then freezing cold during 13 days of darkness. So any human colony there would have to live in a huge indoor biosphere. Mars would be another option, but the problems there would be similar to those on the moon. Scientists have suggested creating a more Earth-like atmosphere there by releasing carbon dioxide and warming it up. But this could take about 1,000 years. Stephen Hawking believes that the best solution is to look for Earth-like planets to colonize.
If only 1% of the 1,000 or so stars within 30 light-years of Earth had an Earth-sized rocky planet in just the right place for life, there would still be 10 planets for colonization in our neighborhood,
Hawking said. However, even if we found the perfect planet, we wouldn't be able to get there at the moment. Traveling on Voyager 1, the fastest spacecraft we've ever sent into space, it would take over 700,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri, the closest star system. Hawking, though, believes that new technologies could soon help us to travel just below the speed of light, reaching the next star to Earth in just 6 years. If we had endless amounts of money for space exploration, we would have already overcome these problems and built the first space colonies. The fact is, it costs about £6,000 to put half a kilo of anything into near-Earth orbit. Nevertheless, Professor Hawking believes that we can afford to give 0.25% of the world's financial resources to colonize space. Just imagine, if people hadn't given Columbus money for his voyage to America in 1492, NASA probably wouldn't even exist today. So, although there are many challenges to overcome, Professor Hawking still believes it will only be a matter of time before we are living in space. The only question is whether this happens in years, centuries, or millennia. What do you think? Is space truly the final frontier?
(3G) Skills. Exercise 1A, page 58. One,
Air pollution.
2,
Rubbish.
3,
Water pollution.
4,
Deforestation.
5,
Natural resources, oil, coal and gas, etc., are running out.
6,
Electronic waste.
Exercise 3A, page 58.
Today I'm joined by Matt Silbury. Matt recently set up a tree planting project which aims to breathe fresh new life into urban communities. Welcome, Matt. Perhaps you can start by telling us how the project got started.
Yes, hello. Well, it all started when I moved to Linton to be closer to my job in the city. I was born and raised in a small town in the country, and it was the first time I'd lived in such an urban environment. I found the concrete jungle of all the grey buildings there really depressing. I quickly realised I wasn't alone. Other local people felt exactly the same way. So I did some research on volunteer community projects and decided that I'd enjoy setting up a tree planting project. It seemed like the perfect way to brighten up the area. I suggested it at a local residents' meeting, and we all decided to give it a try. Then we applied to the Forestry Commission for some money to help with the project, and, luckily, they gave us permission and money to go ahead.
Was it difficult to get people involved in the beginning?
Actually, not really. Most people really liked the idea from the start, as tree planting is something that brings an immediate and lasting change to an area. Then, as people began to see their community looking greener and more pleasant, others wanted to join in too. People keep telling me that they feel a real sense of satisfaction doing something so practical to care for the environment. I know exactly what they mean. It's actually really nice to be able to say, "You see that tree over there? I planted it." I feel that the project has really brought the community closer too, because we've all been working towards the same goal.
So, what does the future hold for the project?
Well, a small group of us have started trying to promote similar projects in other areas of the city. We visit a lot of community groups and events to talk about what we've done and to encourage others to do the same.
So, how can our listeners find out more?
Just go to our website, www.greenspace.org. There's lots of information there about how you can either join us, donate to the project, or even start planting trees in your own community.
Matt, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
(3H) Curricula, Geography. Exercise 1, page 59.
What is deforestation? Deforestation occurs when people cut down whole forests of trees. Tropical rainforests are particularly under threat. 2/3 of the lowland tropical rainforests in Central America, for instance, have been turned into land for grazing since 1950. Why is it happening? Small farmers cut down a few acres of trees in order to grow crops or let their animals graze. They clear them in a process called slash and burn. Loggers also cut down a lot of trees for wood and paper products, and urban developers turn areas of forest into mines, new roads, homes, or factories. Natural factors such as wildfires sometimes contribute to deforestation too. Why is it such a problem? Deforestation is a major threat to the delicate ecosystem of our planet. Basically, it destroys the homes of animal and plant species, and many of them die out, including many unique species that could be used to make medicines for some of the world's worst diseases. More than 2/3 of all medicines with cancer-fighting properties, for example, come from rainforest plants. Also, trees absorb harmful greenhouse gases. When forests are cut down or burnt, most of these gases stay in the Earth's atmosphere, which speeds up global warming. In fact, in the next 24 hours, deforestation will be responsible for the release of as much CO2 into the atmosphere as that from as many flights as it takes to carry 8 million people from London to New York. How can we help to fight deforestation? Take part in tree planting days to replace some of the lost trees. Recycle paper and buy recycled paper products such as notepads. Eat less meat, or at least check where it has come from. If it's from rainforest areas, it's likely that rainforests were cut down in order to raise cattle. Encourage your family, friends, and neighbours to think about the rainforests too by telling them all about the issue and how they can help. Support charities and companies that support rainforest protection by donating money and buying wood products like furniture made from sustainable forests. Rainforests, fast facts. Tropical rainforests cover 6 to 7% of the Earth's surface. The largest are 1. The Amazon, South America, 2. The Congo, Africa, 3. Southeast Asia, 4. New Guinea, 5. Madagascar. Areas of forest the size of 2 football fields are lost per second due to deforestation. If this rate continues, the world's rainforests will disappear within 100 years. Rainforests are home to over half the plant and animal species in the world. 137 species become extinct every day.
Three I. Writing. Exercise 6B, page 61.
Hi, Tina. Have you got a few minutes? I have to write an essay and I'm short on ideas. I was wondering if I could pick your brain.
Sure, Bill. What's the topic?
It should be mandatory for all young people to do charity work to protect the environment.
Oh, I have to write that one too. Let's see. We need 2 viewpoints which are in agreement with the statement. How about, this work would benefit young people in the future? You know, things like cleaning up beaches and planting trees would teach them how to work as part of a team. That's useful for their future jobs.
Good point. They'd also develop a greater sense of responsibility. That's another quality bosses appreciate. On the other hand, wouldn't kids think it's unfair to be forced to give up their free time to do unpaid work?
Well, maybe, and we could mention that in the essay. After all, they could argue that they're already under a lot of pressure with their studies, or work, if they've got a job.
Right. But the most important point we should make is that young people should try to help solve environmental problems because they help to cause them.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, anyone who travels by car or uses public transportation is helping to increase the problem of air pollution. Young people travel to school or work every day. Also, PCs, TVs, game consoles, DVD players and so on use a lot of electricity and young people use these all the time.
That's a good point. A lot of young people I know spend most of their time online or playing on their Xbox or PlayStation. And I suppose you could say they've got more time and energy than their parents to get involved with charity work.
Wow, Tina. We've just managed to find ideas for 3 main viewpoints. You're terrific. Thanks for your help.
You're welcome, Bill. Now we just have to write a good introduction and conclusion.
Skills Practice 3. Exercise 2B, page 63.
Hi, Brendan. I'm so happy to see you. How did your summer go?
Great, thanks. I did some voluntary work for 6 weeks with my 2 brothers and a couple of friends.
Really? That's great. And where was that?
We worked at an animal shelter up north.
Oh, all right. And what did you do exactly?
Well, there were a lot of things to do, so we all had different tasks. Some of the volunteers had to feed and clean up after the animals, and sometimes even take them for walks, while others helped raise money by presenting the centre to tourists in the town centre and collecting donations. I was asked to organise guided tours for tourists. It was a pretty cool job.
That sounds interesting. You must have met a lot of people.
Yeah, it was great. I also learned a lot about conservation and taking care of injured or sick animals. A lot of them are in a terrible condition when they arrive. They are often either terrified of us or aggressive towards us, and we have to manage that. Some volunteers on the team find it difficult at first and even cry, but after a while you learn that there is no point crying, and you learn to act and do what's necessary to help the animals. You have to be caring with them, but you also have to be strong to be able to help them.
I imagine. The poor things. Could I come and help you out next year?
I think so. You know they never have enough volunteers, so they are very happy to have people like you.
Are you sure? I mean, I have no experience.
Anyone can learn how to take care of animals if they want to. Don't worry.
Exercise 5C, page 64.
Have you read this article in the newspaper today, Sarah, about whether we should spend money on space exploration?
No. What does it say?
Well, the writer thinks that we need to explore other planets so that the human race can continue.
Really? How come?
Well, he says that resources on Earth are running out, so we might need to colonize space to survive. He thinks it's only a matter of time before the Earth is destroyed in a catastrophe like a nuclear war or an asteroid strike.
That all sounds quite unlikely to me.
Well, he also argues that important scientific discoveries can be made in space. For example, studying dry planets like Mars helps us understand why we have water on Earth. We can also mine resources from new planets.
I suppose that's true. But does he mention how expensive space exploration is? When millions of people are living in poverty, how can we justify spending billions on space travel? Isn't it more important to provide people with clean water and food?
But the cost of space exploration is very small compared to what the government spends on other things. I mean, think of how much money governments spend on nuclear weapons and wars. It would be much better to spend this money on science.
I can't argue with that. But you're forgetting one thing. Space exploration is risky. Not every mission is a success. Every time a rocket fails to launch or a satellite is lost, billions are wasted. The missions can be dangerous for the astronauts too.
True, but overall, I still believe we should spend money on exploring space. It's human nature to want to discover new things about the world and the universe we live in.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's an interesting topic, that's for sure.
Exercise 1, page 66.
Vita is life. Vita Animal Rights Center is a non-profit charity organization in Russia whose aim is to protect animals against cruelty through peaceful means. Its main activity involves campaigning for better conditions for farm animals and for a ban on the testing on animals of medicines and cosmetic products. Vita also fights for better living conditions for animals in zoos and circuses, as well as providing food, shelter and medical assistance for stray cats and dogs that roam the streets. Vita works in a number of ways to protect and improve the lives of animals. One of its major roles in society is to try to make people aware of the plight of suffering animals, and in order to achieve this, takes part in numerous television and radio programs, gives lectures on animal issues, and organises special events. The organisation also works with the government to try to introduce new animal welfare laws. Many celebrities support Vita and have helped it achieve some great victories in the recent past. In March 2008, Vita took a number of Russian stars, including Alonia Sviridova, to the coastal village of Letnyaya in an attempt to put a stop to the killing of newly born Greenland seals. The trip attracted a lot of publicity, and shortly afterwards a ban was placed on the hunting of baby seals. The organisation cooperates with well-known international charities and is a member of the World Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals and the RSPCA. It hopes to be able to do more in the future to protect animals and give them a decent life.